Alright, okay. So my name's Rod.
Hi, Tosh.
Hi, Josh. How's it going? So, you guys are here to try and promote veganism,
That's right, yeah.
right? You're a vegan?
That's correct, yeah.
How long have you been a vegan?
I've been vegan about a year.
Okay. Would you say that this sort of footage was highly influential to your conversion?
Absolutely.
Absolutely?
Yeah. Seeing what happens in a slaughterhouse is what convinced me.
Okay.
Hearing about it didn't, but seeing it did.
Now, do you mean in person or the footage?
The footage.
The footage. Would it be like either Dominion or Earthlings?
Earthlings. I've seen both, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So my question is, if the footage was different, right? Let's say, because you're going to have parts of this film where they're just going to punch, beat the cows, and that sort of thing.
What we're showing right now is just standard practice.
Right. So I see you got the
chicken
chicken emaceration.
Macerated, yes.
Yeah. So that's something you wouldn't be able to come to terms with.
I don't think it's worth doing that for eggs.
No?
Something that we don't need.
Right. So I'm not in disagreement that on the need point.
Yeah.
Right.
So you agree that we don't need animal products to be healthy?
I think, I can't be 100% sure, and I think it's still new, but as far as I know, that's what the dietetic associations are saying.
Yeah. Like in 2016, they came out with the peer-reviewed statement.
So, I mean, it's still a bit new, but other than that, I'm not better than scientists who do the research.
Yeah, no, exactly.
So I'll tentatively take that as to be the case.
Yeah, plus there's millions of vegans worldwide who are totally healthy, that don't need animal products.
So I agree with that. So there's no point of contention here.
Yeah.
But, you would agree that just because something's needless doesn't mean it's bad, right? It has to both be bad and needless.
Sure.
Right.
Do you think this is bad? Taking little calves away from their mothers first day born?
I think that's one of the harder points to reconcile is the taking the calves. But when we talk about something like the emaceration, or perhaps bolt stunning something to death, then I don't have a problem with it.
You don't have a problem with macerating male chicks?
No.
No?
It looks gory, but it is also an instant death.
But they don't have to die at all.
Sure, they don't have to, but why is it bad that they do?
Because they don't have to.
But you said specifically need wasn't a strong enough argument on its own. It has to both be needless and bad. So now you can't say it's bad because it's needless.
Well, it's bad because you're ending a life by grinding it up alive. Would you want that to happen to you or your pet cat or pet dog?
No, of course not. But those are, I have a different way of conceptualizing my life than a baby chicken would. I think you would grant that.
Sure, yeah.
Right? And I have a different way of conceptualizing my cat's life. So what is the life to the baby chicken? We're asking from the baby chicken's perspective, is it like anything?
I don't think we can answer that. We know that it's alive and it doesn't want to die.
What do you mean by it doesn't want to die? Do you think baby chicken understands the concepts of life and death?
It may or may not, but I don't think it deserves to be ground up alive its first day of life.
Sure.
It's going to grow up older. If you didn't do that, it would be a full-grown live chicken that would enjoy life that had the chance.
Right, so would you agree that the argument has to stem from the potential goods that an animal could have? It's not necessarily that, from its perspective, killing it is bad, but that you're denying it future potential good states.
Sure. Yeah. You're denying it its entire life, basically.
Right.
And it's for such a trivial reason. This is all profit motivated. They're not going to be profitable.
Well, so sure, but also people enjoy it, right? Right. Well, I think some of it's used for
some of it ends
animal
up in
food.
Yeah.
But other than that, right? We're trying to find that, you're saying it's trivial reasons, right? but then we first have to.
It's an unnecessary.
And we've agreed on that.
Yeah.
But we're establishing the badness to begin with, so that we can say the unnecessary is a useful point, right?
Yeah.
Right? Like when I say something like, I think it's bad to kill someone, but I can justify it in self-defense.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah. That's one of the few times you could justify killing.
Right? So we have something that we think is a bad thing, and then we're putting it in a context and where it's justifiable. I'm not convinced that, killing animals is bad to begin with.
Okay, that's where we disagree then. I think you may have a reason to kill them if there's a need, but for a want, I don't agree. I don't think you can kill something and end its life for a want.
Right. Well, how would we end up resolving like a dispute between that? Like, let's say I just disagree and I don't see the badness inherent in it, and I think therefore the fact that it's needless is just an irrelevant point, right? Like basketball to me is needless. I don't need to do that.
Yeah.
I don't need to play ping pong, but I go and do it anyways.
Sure.
Because I don't have a problem with it.
That is your personal choice to go and do that, right?
Right.
It doesn't affect anybody else, though. This affects another life form.
It does, but not in a way that I think is necessarily bad, because I don't see from the perspective of the animal that it has a concept of life and death like we do. Now, I agree with you, we would be denying future potential good states, right? So we would agree with that.
You could say that for a baby human that was just born, you could say it doesn't know about death yet, right?
I would 100% agree with that statement, but it means a lot to us, doesn't it, as human beings, to protect any other human for any reason?
Sure, yeah. You don't want to kill it.
Like, just instinctively, we just empathetically care about any baby. Why should I hold that same disposition towards every other creature?
You don't have to hold that same disposition. You just have to grant them that whatever you're getting out of, like an egg, whatever pleasure you're getting from it, is that worth more than ending its life?
Sure. What if I just say that it is?
To you, that is, sure.
Right? And I would say to me it is, and to the animal it's almost a meaningless statement. Right?
Well, that's its entire life down the drain.
Sure.
How's that meaningless?
It's meaningless from the perspective of something that can't grasp the meaning of those statements.
Yeah, well, that's an irrelevant point, because humans you can't grasp it either, but you don't do that to humans. Right?
I don't do it because of how I feel towards humans, but I don't feel that same way. Like, I impose a meaning onto infants, onto people who can't conceptualize. I impose that because of how much I care about them. So it's not from their perspective they care about their life. I agree with that. Not until they've fully cognized, learned language,
so you just
and
go
are able
through
to
life
abstract.
And you decide, I like that egg, so killing them's fine.
Yeah. Essentially. Right? Now, I think animals have in the moment states, right? Like, we might not be able to think about the future or think about concepts like life and mortality, but yeah, we agree. But I do think that they feel pain in the moment. I think it's likely.
Oh, it's absolute fact.
I wouldn't agree that it's a fact, but I think it's likely.
Why would you think they wouldn't?
Because consciousness is an extremely tough topic to be able to figure out.
We know they have a brain. We know they have a central nervous system. We know they have pain receptors. You know that if you cut them, they're going to run away.
Now,
they're going to scream. They scream.
Yeah, I agree with all the behavioral statements and all those positions you said, but we do have brains that are like hundreds of times more complex than what a chicken has, and I don't know what it takes to instantiate consciousness. Now, you might be under the belief that it's just a brain and it's just a nervous system and that's always good enough, right?
So you don't think they're conscious?
I'm saying it's hard to tell, because that's not exactly an easy thing to look at.
Well,
I can't even go.
Definition of consciousness then?
Is having an experiential aspect, like it's something it is like to be that being.
So they don't experience that? It's like when a chicken's like raising its young. And
again, I'm saying I think it's likely, but I'm not saying I know for sure. right? So there's no point of saying I don't think that,
Okay.
because I'm not putting out that it's not the case.
If you don't know, it's worth it to just grant them that, right?
Right, and I was for the sake of the argument, but you were bringing it up because you were a little interested that somebody wasn't 100% convinced,
Yeah.
right? That's fair?
So we'll agree that they are conscious and they feel pain.
Yeah, for the sake of the argument, we'll agree that. And I think that would grant in the moment avoidance of pains, such as like, hitting them or beating them or causing them pain in the moment. I'm not convinced on the life point.
What do you mean by life point?
The future states. Like, why do I owe animals future potential states?
Oh, you don't owe them anything. It's just
Well, why would it be wrong to deny them future potential states? Like, what is the difference
you don't
between?
need to.
We already established that's not quite enough to establish that something's wrong, right? So you're trying to tell me that it's wrong and then it's needless.
Oh, it's both. It's both.
Right. So, but the wrongness can't come from the needlessness.
Okay.
You agreed with me that other things are needless and they're totally fine.
Yeah.
Right?
Sure, yeah.
So there's no point of telling me it's needless in order to convince me it's wrong. There's got to be something else that makes it wrong.
Oh, you're slitting its throat and throwing it in a gas chamber.
Well, I don't think you do it in that order. That would be a pretty silly order. But I know we're doing those actions, but why is denying them future states wrong? Right? Like, what if I kill a 10-year-old cow and I replace it with another cow, right? Because now we have the resources for that new additional cow. That cow gets to have a life, where the other cow stops having its life. So we're having the same amount
do that to
of states.
Would you do that to like a dog?
I just want to know if you agree with me at this point, is that the amount of goodness happening or pleasurable states in the world are basically equivalent, right? The thing that would make it bad is if there was some meaning to that particular life.
Well, there's lots of humans that don't have meaning to their life as well. Like, killing them would still be bad.
Who doesn't have a meaning to their life?
Well, someone who like doesn't have like the mental capacity to think ahead.
Sure, right? But like I said, I make exceptions for them because of how I feel about humans.
Just because they're in the same group as you.
Well, essentially because I share a society with them, right? If there was intelligent aliens living with us, I would probably feel the exact same way about them as I do with people because I shared a society with them.
You share the earth, basically.
I know, but this isn't like a cooperative system, whereas a society is, right? And I've come to have these feelings and empathies for people that I just can't get rid of. Mm-hmm. But I don't feel the same.
You don't feel
pull.
empathy for animals at all.
Well, of course I feel empathy, right? But not to the degree of their lives. It's just to that particular aspect. It's not towards the pain. I don't think you can just kick things and hurt them for no reason. Right?
Yeah, well, we'll agree there.
Okay.
Well, why? If you don't care about the animal and they're useless to you, and it's fine to just kill them because it's a want, it fulfills a want.
Then why not what? Like hit them?
Yeah.
Well, because I do think that they have in the moment existence, right? So I think you can harm them there.
Absolutely.
Right? So, but for the future potential states, I don't think from their perspective you can harm them, right? They're only getting denied something they didn't know they ever would have. And I mean, I don't think a chicken's ever going to conceptualize it through its entire life, whereas a baby could. But my point is if they can, and I don't have any like pull to want them to live out that life like I do for humans, what should compel me to be against it at that point?
Because you're causing unnecessary suffering, pain, and death to a living creature?
Yeah, but we agreed unnecessary isn't necessarily a problem.
Yeah, for certain things. But for when it comes to killing a life, then it becomes,
Do you just think...
Do you need to do it or you don't need to do it?
So you just think killing is wrong, no matter what it is,
If you don't need to do it.
right? But I don't feel that
It should
way.
only be justified by a need, not a want. This is all because of a want. This is to get protein from their flesh. But you can get protein from other sources that don't involve this kind of suffering and death.
Sure, I mean, I agree with you. But what's wrong with the want?
Wouldn't you have a moral obligation to go with not causing suffering and death as opposed to causing it unnecessarily?
Well, you put suffering in there, right?
Suffering, yeah. From the moment they're born to the moment they die, they're suffering. 98% of the chickens are living in cages. Where they have the amount of real estate as like an iPad.
But you don't
Their whole
actually
life.
have to do that in order to kill animals?
To feed 7 billion people on the planet, you pretty much have to do factory farming.
Well, here's the thing. If you say to feed 7 billion people, you didn't say how much. What if we all ate meat once a month, once a week?
Or if you didn't eat it at all, then you wouldn't have to do this at all.
No, but you're saying what your point was is we have to do it like this. We have to use cramped cages. We have to use bad practices to feed 7 billion people. And I'm saying if people ate once a month, do you think we're forced to use battery cages and other standard bad practices? Or do you think we freed up the space in order to be able to do better practices?
Well, that anyone can guess whether they need to do that or not. All we know is right now, this is the way they're doing it to feed 7 billion people who demand meat every single
But that's
day.
changing the point. That's changing the point of what I was pointing out. You would agree that if people only ate once a month, it's not forced to have to do it this way, right?
I don't know the mathematics. You'd have to run that through.
Well, how much do people eat now? Like 2 meals a day?
Most people eat
Meat?
2-3 meals.
2-3 meals a day? So let's just logically say we take that down to once a month. You know, we're now cutting it by a factor of 100.
If you're going to do that, why not just not have that one day a month?
If we cut it down by a factor of 100, would you agree we wouldn't have to put things in battery cages? It seems to logically follow that we'd have a ton more space available by about a factor of 100.
Possibly, yeah. But if you didn't do animal agriculture at all and you were just doing plant-based, you'd have way more space available.
But now we've agreed that the practices in the film are not required if we catered how much meat we ate to what is needed to allow them to
So
space.
the argument is if we cut down meat 99%, then we wouldn't have to do...
I didn't even say 99. I don't know what the number would be, but I'm just making sure that there exists for you a number, some number in existence. What after that we could negotiate what that number exactly should be, but I want to be on the same page that there is a number, whatever that number is.
Okay,
That makes sense?
Yeah? I
Right.
couldn't tell you what the numbers are.
I couldn't tell you what the numbers
I
are
could tell
either.
you one number, though, is if nobody ate animal products, you wouldn't have to do any of that.
Sure, that's fine. But
If you're coming down to one day a month, you might as well cut that one day off
why?
because it's unnecessary.
Right. But that doesn't get around the part of the practices, right? So now I've given you a situation where the practices don't have to be cramped, right? You added suffering. You said death and suffering. I'm trying to get to a conversation where we're only talking about the death,
Okay.
right? Because the death is a necessary part to killing animals and getting
The only way
food,
you're going to eat meat is if it costs death.
right? And so we're in agreement. Death is required.
Yeah.
Suffering you put in. I want to say that suffering isn't
It's
required.
required if you want to eat that. It's not required if you choose something else to eat.
Are you saying suffering's required?
No, the death is not
The death.
required.
The death.
The death is not required if you simply choose to eat something else.
Okay, so we've reduced it down to only death being necessary, and I still don't know why the death is bad.
You don't know why death is bad.
Yeah, I don't know why necessarily killing an animal is wrong.
Because it wants to live?
I don't think animals have that concept.
Well, you're just guessing. So you should, since you don't know for sure, you should grant them that they want to live their life because every other living thing we know wants to live their life.
No,
Your
well,
cat
from
wants to live, your dog wants to live.
you're
humans
just
wanna live.
what we see is that animals have behaviors which increase their likelihood of living, but that's not the same as having a concept of death. You agreed with me that babies don't have a concept of death, so why would I think animals do? I mean, we're the most intelligent species on this planet, and it still takes us a while to be able to understand this concept. Why would I think a chicken has it?
I would just grant, because if you're going in there to try to kill them, they're going to run away, so they want to live. They don't march into a slaughterhouse on their own. You have to physically force them in there.
Does that necessarily mean a concept of life or death?
They can smell the death, I'm sure.
Or do you think they're smelling blood or
Death, fear.
does that mean you have a concept of morality or mortality? Sorry, mortality.
Possibly. Could be.
Don't you think that's a little weird if that doesn't even work like that with people? Did you understand your existence when you were a baby?
Might have questions. I don't know.
When you were just an infant, you were just born. Did you understand the concept of your life?
Probably not.
No.
But that doesn't mean you need to go and kill them.
I never said you had to.
You're
But
saying it's not wrong to kill them.
yeah, I'm saying I don't think it's wrong to kill animals.
Well, that's
right?
just where we're going to be disagreeing here.
But I want to make sure we agree on a few of the points that you're using to try and prove that it's wrong. One point you're saying is because they don't want to die,
Yeah.
right? But if we're agreeing that an infant has no ability to understand that concept, why are we granting it to things that are 100 times less complex?
Because you know, when you, let's just say, like goats going to the slaughterhouse, they're not going to walk in there. They're going the other way. When you load them with trucks going to the slaughterhouse, they don't walk in there on purpose because they know what's going to happen.
You can set up farms where they will. They're none the wiser.
They use Judas goats to bring them into the slaughterhouse.
Right? Sheep just go. I mean, that's like the characteristic of the sheep. Is the sheep just follow in. They don't know what's going on. And if you watch, perhaps Temple Grandin footage, slaughterhouse footage, you'll watch any animal go in because she has a good understanding of how to design the slaughterhouse, walkways so that animals don't freak out, right? I think maybe you're thinking that they're not going in because they have some concept of life or death, but she can show that just by manipulating animal psychology, she can get basically anything into the slaughterhouse and then just get bolt gunned, right? So it's not that, but it's, perhaps lighting or, when you're putting something down a dark tunnel, instinctively any animal's going to want to run away.
Sure.
Right? So it's not necessarily that they have this concept of death they're running from. It's just, bad lighting or smells or things like that.
Oh, that you're just guessing, right?
Well, that's what she shows. I mean, she has videos proving
who
that.
that is, so I can't speak to it.
Well, Temple Grandin is a animal psychologist who designs slaughterhouses in order.
She works in that industry.
She works in the industry in order to get animals down the line without being scared.
So it wouldn't be good for her to come out against that, right?
I don't know.
Like,
Depends what she wants to do, really. I don't run her life.
She wants to stay in the slaughterhouse business.
Possibly. I don't know. I mean, she gives a lot of speeches about autism.
I'll take whatever she says with a grain of salt. We'll just put it that way.
Well, sure, but you're giving me a different perspective. Is that you're saying, well, it's their cognition is they're fearing death. Why should I take that with anything more than a grain of salt? Like, do you have any credentials on animal psychology?
No.
No. Okay. Well, then what makes you think that? Like, you're seeing something run away, but you don't know what they're running away from. A
slaughterhouse where they can smell death, fear, and blood.
Do you think an animal has a concept of a slaughterhouse? They know what that is?
I think they do.
Where do you think they learned that?
They can hear. They can hear the screams. They can smell the blood and the fear. They can sense it. They don't want to go in there.
Right, and if you took away the smell of the blood and the screams, do you think they would run away from it? Because they just see slaughterhouse outside? I'm going to say probably not.
Probably not. Does that give you the right to just end their life because of a want, though?
I don't think I need a right, particularly. I need to be convinced that it's wrong.
Well, you just disagree. You think killing's not wrong, so...
Not
You already
automatically.
made up your mind, right?
Well, I'm just wondering if you have any compelling arguments. Like, I'm taking some of the things you're saying, and I'm trying to give a different perspective as to why we might not see it like that particularly. Right? You're saying they want to live. I'm talking about, the way that animals conceptualize things, and I'm trying to use analogies of the way we conceptualize things. And it seems like you agree with me that infants don't conceptualize mortality until later in their life.
We both agree that it's wrong to just kill them because...
Sure.
Yeah.
But I have
So
different
grant
standards.
The same thing to the animals.
Right.
You
But I don't.
You don't. Yeah. That's where we just disagree.
So is there any way that that's a resolvable thing?
Well, we just have a very difference of opinion.
And do you think that's all it comes down to? Do you think there's any objective moral statements that either one of us could make, or do you think it just comes down to how we feel about it? I would agree maybe that you get a different feeling out of this than I do when we look at it.
Yeah.
Maybe that does happen, and that changes the way that we respond to it.
Yeah, well, don't you think that taking animals away from their mothers, bolt gunning them in the head and chopping their heads off for a reason that is not necessary for your health, don't you think that's a little psychopathic?
I don't think it's psychopathic. I think the taking away the child might be questionable because you're not even just ending the life. I would say that there's actual pain occurring still.
There's psychological pain, absolutely.
Right? So I might say that that might be hard to reconcile with. There might actually be a problem
it's
there.
For a glass of milk.
Right? But for the bolt gunning part, like what I said, all you're doing is denying future states, and you're replacing it with another animal that gets to live its existence. Now, we could talk about how shitty the actual systems are, right? And I actually don't know because I don't visit a lot of slaughterhouses. But if they're this shitty,
This is all standard practice. This happens
well,
in Canada, this happens around the world.
You see where they wrestle the cows. I don't know if that's it. The bolt gunning, I agree.
You just got bolt gunned and then sliced in the neck.
Oh, that's fine then. I don't have a problem with that, yeah.
You don't have... Could you do that yourself?
I could, but I'm in school for philosophy, so I'd probably rather do that.
Right.
I don't know why I would go take a low-working, hard... I know that the workers kind of have shitty conditions and low pay, and it's not particularly best for the workers.
Nobody grows up wanting to work in the slaughterhouse.
Well, nobody grows up wanting to work in McDonald's either, but they do. Right? Shit needs to get done. So that's not really a particular problem for me. But yeah, so it sounds like the major difference is the potential future states. We just have a disagreement on there.
Oh yeah, we disagree. For sure.
But I'm not sure there's... I think we've agreed on most facts. Most of them. I think you're a little questionable on the whether animals can conceptualize life or death point. You don't seem to be 100% on board with that one.
You don't even think they have consciousness.
I never said that. Remember? I told you not to say that because we clarified that I think it's likely. Yeah.
You'll grant it though.
Yeah, I grant it. So it's not fair to say that of my position.
So don't you think ending their life when they're conscious for a reason that's unnecessary is unjustified?
No.
No, it's not.
No.
Totally justified.
I don't think it needs to be justified. I think it needs to be proven wrong. I don't think you justify things that you haven't proven wrong yet.
Well, when there's a victim involved, there has to be a justification for performing that action.
I don't think I would look at it as a victim, right? I think that's a value-loaded word.
Disagreement.
Yeah.
Stabbing an animal in the throat, they're not a victim.
Yeah, you end their lives, right? And we agree there. But in what way are they conceptualizing this as a problem?
Why do they need to conceptualize it? They're going to feel pain in the moment.
Isn't that what gives meaning to life? Is being able to understand
I
it?
don't think I can tell you what the meaning of life is. I don't think either of us can say it.
Well, I think everybody gives themselves meaning.
You can give, sure, you can give your life meaning.
Yeah, everybody gives
I
their...
try to cause the least amount of harm. It's a simple equation for me.
Do you stand by the statement that you actually try to cause the least amount of harm? That everything in your life is centered around there?
Well, with respect to my diet, that's one easy way.
You think, okay, well, I'll challenge. First, I want you to say, in respect to everything of your life, do you try to reduce the amount of pain in the world?
Oh, not every single thing. Like, there's, like, within reason. I'll drive my car to work. I might run over a bug on the way to work.
Okay,
There's
so
stuff
I
you
don't know
can't-
what
there's
within
stuff-
reason is.
There's stuff you can't. That's out of your control.
It is out of your control whether you drive?
Or if I walk down the street and step on a bug that I don't see.
Well, could you be more, pay more attention,
Could try, yeah,
right?
sure.
So you would
But for
probably
this-
say,
This is something you decide 3 times a day, whether you want to support this or not support
yeah,
it.
well, walking something you probably decide like 50 times a day, right? So, I mean, there's a lot of things you do in your life that
Yeah, this is one of the biggest.
I just want to take the statement that you said is that you do everything, right? You avoid you minimize it as much as you possibly can. Is that something you really think you do?
Within reason.
I don't know what that means.
Well, if I can go to the store and I can pick something up that causes this kind of suffering, and
Uh-huh.
one that doesn't, I'll pick the one that doesn't.
But what about other actions in your life? Right? So you're showing me there's one thing you do to try and minimize harm.
Which is a huge one.
Sure.
That is the largest source of suffering and death on Earth.
Fine. Let's
It's
say
the largest. It's not even close.
let's grant you that that's true. Do
It
you
is.
still do everything?
Trillions. lives
But that's
ended
fine. We're
here.
agreeing on the point, so you don't need to belabor it. I'm saying, do you think you actually do everything else in your life? And then you're saying within reason. Oh, I don't know what your reasons are.
Stuff that I'm aware about, I'll try not to, right?
Does this mean from this point on you're going to be watching everywhere you step?
No. This is
So you're not going to do
I'm talking-
everything.
not every single thing.
Okay. Why? Well, what's your
Well,
stopgap
if I
part?
see a bug on the ground, I'm not going to step on it.
Sure, but why aren't you always paying attention?
Oh, I'll try to pay attention.
You are. Are you going to stop driving?
No,
Why not?
'cause I got to get places.
Why not take public transit? It's better on the
I took
environment.
public transit here.
So will you stop driving and always take public transit?
Sometimes you can't go places. This is totally off the point.
No, it's not. You said you do everything that you can to minimize harm. I'm seeing if you're actually consistent with that statement.
Well,
You don't have
I'll
to
try.
say that.
I try more than most. Let's just put it that way.
Right, okay. So,
This is the biggest one for me.
okay, so you're saying if you try more than most, therefore you're doing good enough.
No, I'm doing what I can.
But you said you're
can
not.
You can always be better.
Then how are you doing what you can if you agree that there are some things you could be doing more and you don't do them?
Like what? Would you give me an example? Like
Driving
not
if you
drive?
don't have to. You always take public transit if you have the option.
Yeah, I try. I can take it more, maybe. Sure.
So anything I bring up, you will do.
No.
Why not?
I don't need to. Like I do what I can.
It's not me telling you to do these things. These are
Yeah.
your moral codes.
Yeah.
I'm only seeing if you
This
live
is-
by
This
them.
is the one that means the most to me because of the suffering.
Okay, so
If I
you
drive my car to work, I'm not killing anybody purposefully. This is killing and suffering on a massive scale, the biggest scale.
yeah, well, smacking into a bug with your car is also killing, right? Are you saying that the distinction is the purposefulness,
That is definitely an aspect of it.
right?
That is definitely an aspect, sure.
Well, how do you feel about spraying pesticides for crops? That's purposeful. I mean, you know what's going to happen.
Yeah, I used to try to buy organic, but that actually kind of supports this as well.
So it sounds like you're kind of damned if you do.
Damn if you do, damn if you don't.
Right. So I get that you can fall back to the necessary component. You need to live, right?
Yeah.
And I guess for you, your life trumps whatever suffering might exist because of your life.
Yeah, just existing, you're going to cause some sort of suffering.
Right. So you have to be able to say that your life is worth more than whatever suffering comes about because of your life. I mean, I'm willing to say that for me. I would rather live,
Yeah.
even if it causes suffering. But are you okay with that statement as well?
Yeah, I'd like to live too. And while I'm here, try to do better.
Uh-huh. But we can take back the statement that you do everything, right? Because that's just crazy.
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
I'll grant you that.
But
this is such a simple thing you can do every day.
lots of things are simple things you could do.
Yeah, but this is the largest form of suffering and death on earth.
Sure.
So other choices during the day don't have this kind of impact.
Are you saying we should relegate our choices to only whatever causes the largest amount of suffering?
No. Well, this is one that is so easy to do, and it has the biggest result. So why wouldn't you do it?
I mean, I can say that about a lot of things, like public transit, right? It's pretty easy to get on a bus.
Yeah, but you're not massacring 2 trillion animals a year for public transit.
Well, how much do you think damage pollution does to your car?
Oh, I couldn't tell you. I don't know.
You
don't know, and I don't know. I know this though.
Are you concerned that it might be doing damage?
Could be. I know it's not killing 2 trillion.
I didn't ask you if it could be. I'm asking, are you concerned if it is?
I'm not as concerned as I am about this.
So you point at something else that you think is worse, and that somehow makes it so you don't have to look at something else.
Something that's easier to. This is an easy solution. All you have to do is eat something else or buy something else at the grocery store.
Are hard solutions not worth doing?
Sorry?
Are hard solutions not worth doing?
No, I never said that.
So then what's the point of pointing at this and saying this is worse, this is easy?
It's something you can do every single day, and everyone contributes to this.
But these were reasons you were giving me to not do other things. Right? I asked you if you were concerned about your car's emissions, and you pointed over at the screen there and said that was worse. Right? That seems like a distraction.
No, I'm not talking about driving cars right now. I'm here because of the animals.
Right, but you're also trying to promote a philosophy of minimizing harm, right? So why does it only...
sentient living beings, yes.
2 sentient, sure, right?
Yeah.
So why wouldn't a conversation about other things that do harms to sentient living beings not also be a part of the conversation?
We can have that conversation, for sure.
But
right now, I'm concerned with this.
I feel like you're just using that as a distraction.
You want to start talking about driving in cars? Do you drive?
Only if your statement is that you do everything you can to minimize harm. If you don't make that statement, then I don't care about the cars.
Sure, I'll withdraw that statement.
Okay.
Sure, we already did that.
Okay, well, we just got back there somehow. But sure, okay, then we won't talk about the cars. You don't have to do that. Do you feel like you do everything for your diet that minimizes harm?
Minimizes harm to these animals, yes.
Right.
I don't eat them.
You mean these particular animals, pigs and cows and chickens, or to animals in general?
Yeah, I don't eat any animals.
No, I'm not saying you put them in your mouth.
You're gonna bring up crop deaths because of...
Not now. I know there's crop deaths, and I know that you would have to live. You'd have to accept crop deaths in order to live. So it's not that wouldn't be my point. But I would have the point that certain vegetables cause more damage than certain other vegetables.
Okay. Yeah.
Would you avoid the ones that cause more death?
Like which ones cause more death?
Like the incredible amounts that almonds need, or like avocado problems, or stuff like that.
All the water that they need?
Yeah. Almonds are extremely water intensive.
Mm-hmm. Not as water intensive as raising milk.
Fine. But my question is, if there's a worse vegetable than another vegetable, would you end up cutting it out if it's not necessary?
If there was a specific reason to do so, maybe.
Right, because of the environmental damage, or because of, let's say it caused 3 times the amount of crop deaths than another vegetable. Would you say that's a compelling reason to stop eating that vegetable?
Probably would be, yeah.
Okay. Would you go so far as to minimize your diet to what would keep you alive and causes the least amount of damage?
Well, you gotta be healthy, right?
Yeah, I'm saying it's whatever the minimum amount of death, and it's a healthy diet. Let's say you just ate potato, peas, and some greens, and that would keep you alive, and a B12 supplement.
You need a wide variety on a vegan diet. You can't just eat the same 3 things. You need to be able to get all your nutrients.
You probably don't need 100 things. You probably could live on something like 4 or 5 foods.
I think you need more than that.
Based on what? I mean, there's some foods that are pretty much superfoods that contain almost everything you need. Like beans are incredible.
Oh, I eat my fair share of beans.
Right? And I'm sure you eat them because of how much nutrients are in beans.
Yeah,
like they're really good.
Protein source.
Yeah, so I mean, you got your protein, you got tons of nutrients.
Yeah,
there's probably only a few things you're missing.
I'm doing what I can to not support that.
Just these animals specifically. So we're not talking about crop deaths. We're not doing everything we can to reduce crop deaths. We're doing everything we can to stop this.
We're doing everything. This is direct, purposeful killing.
Right. So maybe there's something more in the intentions.
Well, crop deaths. If we lived in a world where we didn't have this, and we had vegan farmers just growing vegetables, they wouldn't be purposefully killing other animals that are coming. Maybe they would build higher fences. Who knows?
I mean, how are you going to keep bugs out? I mean, pesticides is intentional.
Right, yeah.
And you know what it's pesticides. It murders bugs.
Yeah.
Right? So it's intentional. It's less, but it's still intentional.
Yeah. And that is, if you don't do it, it's going to ruin your crops and you have nothing.
Then you have nothing.
That is a necessity.
I
you can
agree.
argue the pesticide part is a necessity. You can't argue that this is a necessity.
Sure, but then we could say that using half as much pesticides is better than using double the amount of pesticides, right? So if one crop only requires half the amount of pesticides, does that not seem like a good reason to only eat that instead of the one that needs double? Or do you not care how many bugs are killed?
Well, if you had that choice, maybe you could do that for sure.
Right. So if you found some hypothetical diet that, would only eat like 5 foods, you would get all your nutrients, you'd be healthy, and it would be the least amount of death, would you survive off of those?
Well, that's total hypothetical because I don't think you could survive off just 5 foods.
Then answer it as a hypothetical.
But say scientists did find that, maybe there'd be an argument for it.
Yeah, it's a consistent position. I can't blame you if you hold to that, right? If that's how you really feel. Although I think that's a bit of
the way I choose what I eat is whether it supports this or it doesn't.
Just what's on the screen specifically?
Well, animal exploitation in general.
Right. So we're not counting crop deaths as exploitation.
No, you're not exploiting.
Okay. You're just murdering them.
Well, in defense of your crops. Insects.
Right. I mean, they want to eat it too. We have to choose our lives over theirs. Right? So we are just murdering them.
Sure. Yeah.
I would say murder's a little killing. Killing's more fair. Murder makes it illegal, and it's not illegal. So it's probably unfair for me to use murder.
Sure. No, I use the term murder for killing animals. It's the same result.
Yeah, as long as it means the same as killing, then it's not really a problem. But if we take the legal part into it, sure. As long as we agree. Well, I'm not sure what we can do to convince each other that the bolt gunning problem.
Like you've researched this a lot. I've got my research as well, and we probably just disagree on certain core aspects.
That might be true. Do you feel that you also place value in humans above other animals that has nothing to do with their level of consciousness?
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah, you kind of have that intuition as well?
Yeah, I just feel like...
But you just feel like this is wrong regardless?
Yeah, I grant them enough to not kill them.
So it doesn't seem weird to you that I put like a special interest in humans, because you might think that...
No, you are a human, so you're going to do that.
Well, do you think it's necessarily because I am a human?
I mean... that's a main reason for it. If you weren't, you wouldn't do that. you were a monkey, you wouldn't, right?
Well, what if I was raised by wolves? I think I would care more about wolves.
Could, possibly, yeah.
I think it has a lot more to do with your experience.
It has to do with, how you're raised.
Yeah.
And you're raised a human.
And you grow connections.
Sure.
Right? And what about like your family, right?
Mm-hmm.
You have a mom and dad, you'd probably do more things for them than you would for a stranger.
Yeah.
Right? So we make those sort of connections. I just don't have that connection with the animals. And I don't think they have the cognition.
Fair enough. But they don't need that cognition, right? Cognition's not a reason to kill them, right?
I mean, I think it is from their perspective. I don't think they have a concept of what's happening other than
I think
the in the moment pain.
Yeah, but it's totally unnecessary. So.
Well, thanks for the conversation.
Yeah, cheers.
It was nice talking to you.
Yeah.
Bye.
Enjoy your day, man.